Welcome to Ask SPS. I'm Tim James. At SPS, you have the Wellness Unit, the Wellness Lounge, you have the Foundations of Wellness, and the Wellness Instagram account. And today on Ask SPS, our guest is not an officer, but a doctor, Lisa Kitt, who is a registered psychologist working with Surrey Police Service and specializing in traumatic stress and mental health injuries. Dr. Kitt, thank you so much for making some time for us.
Thanks for having me today.
So before we get into how exactly you're involved, let's go back to the start. What is wellness?
So I think about wellness in a really sort of broad, complex kind of way. For me, it's really about psychological health, which connects to physical health, but my focus is really psychological health. The number one injury for police officers, we don't have enough data to suggest that this is for civilians too, although I think it is, but the number one risk in policing is psychological health injury, right? And so making sure that we acknowledge that and start to find ways to prevent those injuries in police officers and in the civilians who work in policing is really important. And so wellness for me is really about how do we keep our officers, how do we keep our employees healthy given the demands of the job.
And how exactly do you keep them healthy?
I'm here to create an environment and bring best practice to the organization so we know exactly what to do both day to day and after critical incidents. So there's a lot of things that impact people working in policing, not just, when they respond to calls. I think we minimize this in society, but when police officers respond to calls, they're responding to people on their worst day. Their job is to respond to suffering. Sometimes that's really dangerous suffering, and sometimes it's just gut-wrenching, heartbreaking, emotional suffering. And that's a really difficult thing for a human being to do. And it impacts us as human beings, as mammals, actually, right? And so it's so critical that we understand the impact of that and mitigate it by building workplace cultures that respond to that injured person, to that person who's taken on that stress in really proactive, healthy, compassionate, supportive, caring, understanding ways.
You just said the word culture, and that stands out to me because at SPS I've heard before, health and wellness, it's not a program,
That's right.
It's a culture. And so it sounds like, Doctor, that you're involved in maybe some of the higher up creation of some of the programs and some of the guidance around there. But I wanted to talk, in that kind of one-on-one experience you have with police officers. So we may have somebody who's watching, who's thinking about applying to be a police officer. How exactly would you interact with them after a traumatic situation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in lots of the research that I've done, most organizations actually respond quite well after traumatic stress. So I just want to say, I'm going to answer that question about or how we respond, but it's also the day-to-day. A lot of people are coming to SPS because we are promoting that we're doing things differently, particularly taking care of our people. And so it's really important after a traumatic event, and we've had many actually at Surrey, and so we have them all the time, unfortunately, and they're really difficult. And so we can't prevent our people from responding to the traumatic event, right? That's what would prevent PTSD, is not exposure. But we can't do that in policing. That's their job. And so we want them to respond, and we want them to respond as healthy as humanly possible. But when they come back to the organization, when they come back home to us, it's essential that we create, and in my hands doing this, we create an environment where we wrap around service. We attend to them, both their psychophysiology that's been impacted by the stress that they've encountered, but also just really pragmatically, what do you need? Let's take some time and allow your nervous system to process what it just experienced. We know a lot from the science of trauma injury prevention about how to prevent PTSD and other mental health injuries that stem from stressful experiences. And we need to integrate those into organizations. Policing doesn't do a great job at that yet. And my plan is for us to do that here. And so we attend to the person who's encountered that stressful experience, and we encourage them. We drop stigma. We don't shame them to go right back to work. We make sure that they're allowing that experience to process through their nervous system. And we're doing that by providing this culture, this environment, these teams, including me, but their supervisors, their leadership, their peers, hopefully their families too, that really understand what they've been through and support them in attending and attuning to what it is that they need. if we prioritize our people at SPS and in policing, this will work, right? So after a traumatic incident, we need to prioritize the person that's just gone through that. Trauma processes through people's nervous systems really quickly if we can get out of our own way and provide the right context and environment. And so if we prioritize our people and really care and attend to them, our mental health rates are going to go down. In policing across Canada, we know that somewhere between roughly 30 to 50% at any one given moment, police officers, the rates look quite similar for civilians actually, but are diagnosable with a mental health injury. That's significant amount of symptoms that really impact them in profound cognitive, emotional, behavioral ways. You can't respond from a place of compassion and patience when you're injured yourself. And so we want, best in class policing, compassionate, community-oriented policing. We need to keep our employees healthy. Right? I don't know about you, but on my worst day, if there's been a bad season, I've had lots of stress, some grief in my life, I'm not the empathic, compassionate person with tons of patience and understanding that I am on my best day, or even close up this range when I'm doing well. And so I think it's really imperative, if we want the goals of high morale and compassionate policing, to keep our employees healthy. And we know how to do that. It is a cultural shift in policing, though. It's a cultural shift to attend to emotional needs. It's a cultural shift to attend to our employees and prioritize them first. That's not typically what's historically happened in policing.
Yeah, you're talking about how policing could improve, and so it makes me think, Doctor, how common is it to have a registered psychologist working with the police service?
Psychologists are embedded in lots of the larger organizations across Canada, but usually as sort of a one-off. So something's happened, you've gone through something serious, and you should go talk to the psychologist. And I do that here too. I'm happy to meet with people when they're struggling and refer them on to other psychologists and ensure that they're receiving best practice. But I don't yet think in many places across Canada and North America, actually, we've embedded what we know about the science of mental health injury into the fabric of these organizations. And so I think that's a really unique role. And I love it. It's what I'm passionate about. And I know we can do better in policing across Canada. And here at SPS, we could be the model for that, to improve health outcomes for our officers and therefore the community. Like if this is all about serving Surrey in the most compassionate, ethical, responsive way, we need to ensure we're doing that for our employees first.
And it sounds like this is a process with what you have in mind, your vision. This is something that's going to be growing over time, as SPS is a growing organization. So maybe, Doctor, looking forward in the future, is there something that you would specifically like to see or something you'd like to build when it comes to SPS, something you have in mind?
I have a lot in mind about how I think we should do. I think it gets down to values to begin with, and so I can talk about really specific things that I think we should do. But I also believe that if we value our employees and value health and understand and stop stigmatizing psychological health, we'll do the right thing. We will attend and attune to our people and ask them what they need. We will prioritize their health. Maybe that means not coming to work the next day and instead working with a reintegration team or seeing me first to make sure that going back to work doesn't harm people more. The goal, my job, is to keep people healthy doing hard things. So it's not that I want people off for months and months. In fact, we're trying to prevent that. Long term, if we can prevent the mental health injuries, our sick time will go down, our morale will go up, people's job satisfaction will go up, and they'll have healthier professional and personal lives. And so, yeah, I think there's many specifics, but I really think it's about valuing our employees and we know a lot from science and from research about what builds healthy organizations and what harms people, particularly with high levels of exposure to stress. So let's use that information, right? Use your consultants, use other people in the community. And there's a whole lot of really experienced police officers and civilians that we have at SPS who believe in this. Let's use that and harness that to build this, to build a really healthy organization.
Again, it sounds like just building that culture, and this will continue to grow in the years ahead.
Yeah, we'll have peer support programs, we'll have reintegration teams, we'll have, critical incident diffusings to help people process things out of their nervous system. We're gonna have a whole bunch of specific I don't want to call them programs, but normal sort of standard operating procedure, that things we do to help prevent mental health injury in people. But it's more so it's both and. It's that plus the ethos of how we are together. I want leadership to know that their job is their people. How do you care for your people? What do your people need? And they're all individual. What do they all need to thrive in this really difficult, very important, difficult job that we've asked these men and women to do?
Well, Dr. Kitt, thank you so much for sharing so much about mental health and wellness. We appreciate your time today.
Thanks for asking me. I appreciate it.
If you're looking for more information, you can go online to our website, surreypolice.ca. For Ask SPS, I'm Tim James.